year 1600. You've just arrived in Rome from the Ottoman Empire. You step into a dim little shop, and a strange smell hits you. Smoky, rich, unlike anything you've ever known. And you take a sip of the dark, bitter liquid. It's strong, it's energizing, it feels dangerous. A group of churchmen pass by outside whispering to each other, "Is it from heaven? Is it from hell?" Coffee didn't start in Europe. Its roots go back to the highlands of Ethiopia, sometime in the 9th century, at least according to legend. You're going to find there's a lot of legend related to coffee. The most famous story tells of a goat herder named Khaldi. One afternoon, he noticed his goats behaving strangely. They were kicking, prancing, and bleating with unusual zest and energy. And the cause is they had been eating the bright red berries of a certain wild shrub. Khaldi tried the berries himself, and he felt a sudden burst of alertness. He brought them to a local monastery. The monks were skeptical. One, thinking the berries were dangerous, tossed them into the fire. But as the beans roasted, a rich aroma filled the air, and curiosity got the better of them. The roasted beans were ground, steeped in hot water, and coffee, as we know it, was born. And from Ethiopia, coffee cultivation and trade moved to Yemen. By the 15th century, coffee had become deeply woven into life across the Islamic world. The Yemeni port city of Mocha, yes, the same Mocha in your Starbucks order, became a major hub for the trade. In the holy city of Mecca, coffee was everywhere, not just as a morning drink, but as a part of the cultural and spiritual rhythm of the day. And it wasn't just that the drink was spreading, it was the places where it was consumed. Because by this time, coffeehouses had sprung up across cities like Cairo, Damascus, and Istanbul. They were often simple rooms, benches and cushions, low tables holding steaming cups. But they were more than just social spaces. These were really where ideas happened. Because here, merchants and poets, scholars, musicians, they all mingled together. You might hear the recitation of epic poetry in one corner, a debate about religious law in another, and a political argument just outside the door. Because coffee kept people alert late into the night, these gatherings, they could stretch into the early hours, blurring the lines between just a casual conversation and public discourse. Now, not everyone was thrilled about this. The very qualities that made coffeehouses so popular, energy, alertness, conversation, also made them suspicious in the eyes of authorities. In Mecca, some rulers feared that coffeehouses were becoming breeding grounds for dissent. And in 1511, the governor of Mecca actually banned coffee, claiming it encouraged radical thinking and unruly gatherings. But his ban didn't last long. The drink was way too popular. And it wouldn't be the last time coffee's social influence sparked controversy. Coffee entered Europe through the bustling arteries of trade with the Ottoman Empire in the 16th century. Venetian merchants were among the first to bring it west, unloading sacks of this strange dark beans on the docks. And from there, it spread to port cities all over Europe. Each shipment carrying not just a new beverage, but the culture and the stories surrounding it. And coffee, as you can imagine, didn't arrive quietly. It came with whispers or the rumors and more than a little fear. For many in Christian Europe, coffee was the drink of the other. It was born in the Muslim world, consumed in Islamic markets and mosques, and now creeping into the heart of Christendom. Some priests thundered from pulpits that it was the bitter invention of Satan, a beverage with a foreign, almost sinister energy. So the rumors started to swirl. Coffee was addictive. Its stimulating effect was undeniable. A rush of clarity and alertness, unlike the gentle haze of wine. People worried, is my mind going to become enslaved? Coffee fueled heresy. In the Islamic world, coffeehouses had become places of intense theological discussion and sometimes political unrest. If this pattern repeated in Europe, could it become a breeding ground for anti-church sentiment? And coffee was a part of a plot to weaken the faithful. Some even spun elaborate conspiracies that Muslim traders were deliberately pushing coffee to undermine European strength, replacing the holy drink of wine with something foreign and suspect. And these fears weren't entirely irrational for the time. For centuries, wine had not only been a daily beverage, but a sacramental one. It was tied to the Eucharist, the central act of Christian worship, and the idea that another drink might replace wine in both social and what-if religious settings, it felt unsettling. And some priests warned that a society fueled by coffee instead of wine would become more argumentative, more restless, and less contemplative. And in some places, yeah, they were right. As coffee spread, so did the coffeehouses, and with it, the culture of public debate. By the late 1500s, coffee had crossed into Europe's great port cities, and with it came the coffeehouse. In Venice, the first coffeehouse opened near the Rialto Bridge, serving the exotic drink alongside gossip from the East. In Marseille, dock workers and merchants drank it before work, claiming it sharpened their minds. In London, penny universities sprang up, where for the cost of a cup, you could listen to merchants or philosophers or thinkers of law as they debated for hours. And just like in the Middle East, these places became lightning rods for controversy. Priests complained that the new drink was pulling people out of taverns and away from wine. Wine had centuries of theological pedigree. Coffee had Islam. And some church leaders whispered that if coffee became the drink of choice in Christian lands, it could erode the cultural link between wine and the Eucharist. Others argued that it encouraged dangerous independence of thought, the kind that questioned authority. And by 1600, the matter had reached Rome itself. Shipments from the Ottoman Empire were arriving regularly. Wealthy nobles, they would serve it at banquets, scholars would praise its stimulating effects, and the clergy, they were pretty split. On one side were the alarmists. This is Satan's drink, born in infidel lands, corrupting the faithful. On the other were the pragmatists. If it's useful, perhaps it can be redeemed for Christian purposes. And in the middle, holding the authority to settle debate, was Pope Clement VIII. The pressure on him was intense. Some advisors urged an outright ban. They painted it as a test of orthodoxy. Would the church protect the flock from a suspicious foreign pleasure? Others argued that coffee's stimulating effect could actually aid devotion, keeping monks alert during long hours of prayer. Finally, Clement decided to investigate for himself. A servant brought the steaming cup. Clement lifted it to his lips, took a slow sip, then another. He set the cup down, smiled, and according to legend, said, "This Satan's drink is so delicious. It would be a pity to let the infidels have exclusive use of it." Now, whether or not those exact words were spoken, what's certain is that Clement did not ban coffee. In fact, he effectively baptized it into Christian Europe. With the papal blessing, the moral stigma, it evaporated overnight. So soon, coffeehouses were not just tolerated, they were frequented by priests, scholars, and eventually missionaries. And what had once been the drink of infidels became a common sight in Christian lands, fueling both theological discussion and political change. And of course, once coffee got the papal nod, it spread like wildfire. By the 17th century, coffeehouses were popping up across Europe and England, Austria, Germany, and beyond. And much like in the Muslim world, they were centers of conversation, politics, and theology. Clergy met in them to discuss scripture. Lay people debated sermons over steaming cups. Missionaries used them to engage with skeptics and seekers. And again, in some cities, you had the penny universities. For the price of a cup, you could hear the best minds debate the issues of the day. So why does this matter for us? Because the coffee controversy wasn't just about taste. It was about boundaries. And the church had faced this before. Should Christians use pagan philosophical ideas to explain the gospel? Should they adapt local customs when preaching in new cultures? Could something born in a foreign religion be embraced and transformed? Coffee became a small but powerful test case. Rejecting it outright would have reinforced suspicion towards anything outside of Christendom. Accepting it with discernment modeled how the faith could adapt without losing its center. And today, again, we might smile or laugh at the idea of coffee as a theological crisis. But the same questions keep coming back. Should Christians embrace yoga if it has Hindu roots? Should churches use secular music styles in worship? Should we live stream services on platforms that also host questionable content? Coffee's story reminds us that the church has always wrestled with where to draw the line between separation and engagement. So the next time you sip a cappuccino in the church foyer, remember, that cup is actually a part of a centuries-old story. A story that started with suspicion, fear, and talk of the Satan sipper, but ended with conversation, connection, and the aroma of both coffee and grace. Because sometimes what we think is foreign or even dangerous turns out to be a gift worth sharing. So go buy a cup of coffee for someone today. Hey, thanks for listening to Theology Made. I'm Jordan.